Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Dunker Spot. We are part of the Yahoo Sports Network. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, the always excellent Steve Jones Jr. Steve, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
Feeling good, feeling great. Happy to be here. Excited to be here. Thank you, Dunkers, for once again embracing your bounce. Only took me 3 times today. Nekias, how are you?
I am doing well. It appears that we are just in the midst of Cavs week, because we started the week talking about where they were, some moves being made. It was like, okay, this is interesting. And we talked a little bit about Peyton Watson, as they had pretty consistently been linked to him as a potential sign and trade candidate if the Nuggets didn't agree to a contract with them. Lo and behold, Peyton Watson, you will now be a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, part of a 5-team deal. And so the Dennis Schroeder trade that we talked about a week or so ago is being roped into this deal. Wizards being added as well. So now is the Cavs getting Peyton Watson and agreeing to a 4-year deal worth $88 million. There's a player option in the 4th year. Cam Whitmore heading to Cleveland. We'll see how long he's going to be there. The rights to Ishmael Kamagate. We'll see how long he's going to be there. The Denver Nuggets getting the rights to Julian Reese, who was on a 2-way contract. He's set to be waived. But for them, more pressing, a 2031 unprotected first-round pick from Cleveland, a 2032 second-round pick via the Sacramento Kings. The Clippers getting Max Strus out of this deal. Trey Mann not going to Cleveland, now going to Washington, along with a 2027 second-round pick. And as referenced earlier, Dennis Schroeder, you are a Charlotte Hornet. We've had the Hornets conversation, so check out that episode if you want our thoughts on that front. We circle back to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Steve. How do you feel about Peyton Watson officially being a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Well, I mean, it's a good thing we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier this week, but I think Peyton Watson, it's Cleveland spinning the wheel once again. But this time feels a little bit different. I asked, hey, is this DeAndre Hunter 2.0? I was speaking in jest a little bit, but now we're going to see, is this the piece that we need at the 3 to go ahead and push us to have a complete 5-man lineup that we can trust? I think the fit's going to be really interesting. We saw what Peyton Watson did last year with more opportunity, more of a runway to attack and grow. And he showed the aggression. He earned the contract, and now he's a Cleveland Cavalier. This may be the best of both worlds for Cleveland in the sense that you can tap into the growth that Peyton Watson had, the aggression that he showed. Like the shooting was one thing, it being like over 40%, fantastic. You love that. The type of shots he was willing to take from 3 intrigued me. Could be a pull-up, could be you flying out and contesting. So, okay, that's a plus. Being able to play off James Harden, being able to play off Donovan Mitchell, being able to have 2 bigs you can play off with. The improvement as far as, hey, I can run some pick and roll. I'm not necessarily going to bend the defense and force a coverage, but I can get downhill. I can turn the corner. I can try and make a play. I can get some dribble handoffs. Cleveland likes movement. Cleveland likes moving pieces around. Cleveland likes having different people who can attack. Against teams that switch, Peyton Watson willing to attack one-on-one. So what's that mean? How does that help them? Is he going to be secretly the sum of everything Cleveland has tried to get at that position? Because we've seen it time and time again for, it feels like years. Like Isaac Okoro, love the defense. Oh, they're not guarding you. Karis LeVert, love the offense. Hey, DeAndre Hunter, okay, we could do a lot of things. We sure do need you to do a lot of things. Oh, boy. Max Strus, love the shooting. Okay, you're hurt. That's not great. Dean Wade, love the defense. Well, is Peyton Watson the one? Because, again, they're not going to have to, like, he's not going to be forced to be XYZ. He's got James, he's got Donovan Mitchell. I think the other end of it is the defense. Can he have another leap defensively to be able to guard different positions, to be able to kind of be a perimeter attack defender, take some things off the table, knowing you have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen behind you, take some matchups off James Harden and Donovan Mitchell, and kind of allow the Cavs, if you have Mobley and Watson operating at a high defensive level, you got some versatility to kind of move things around to where, okay, Donovan, you only have to do this. James, you can guard big. Jared Allen, you do your job. And so you can have a little bit more synergy in that way. So I'm intrigued by the defense there. And I'm also intrigued by like the lineups. How does this help them kind of flow through different lineups? We know they can go double big. We know they'll stagger them and split them. Are you now able to kind of put Peyton Watson at the 4 to a degree, have some wings? Does that open up Peyton Watson plus Jalen Tyson? You know, obviously Sam Merrill, we know will be involved, but do you open the door to have some more versatility, some different lineups? Because you're always going to have a good guard on the floor, and you're always going to have a good big. But can you have enough size, length, two-way play to kind of make sure, okay, we're delivering 48 minutes of something to you. And so I'm intrigued to see how Peyton Watson grows within this opportunity, Nekias. I have a question, but I'll let you go. How do you feel about the Peyton Watson fit in Cleveland?
Also intrigued. It was one of those things where, as you mentioned, we talked a little bit about the possibility on Tuesday. Then it happened. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I thought more about it. And like the intrigue level is still there for me. But like I'm also a little scared. Like scared is probably too strong of a word, but I'll just use that for now. Because this is quite the bet on Peyton Watson. And this is... You are putting a lot of stock in what the starting stretch for Peyton Watson was last year compared to everything else that he's done. And so I agree with you that within a context standpoint, within an expectation standpoint, like, no, you are not coming to Cleveland to become the number 2 option. You do not have to average darn near 20 points per game for this to be like a success, et cetera. I do think the expectation level is like bouncing off what you said. We do kind of need you to solidify the 3 for us. And like, I do think the upside is intriguing enough to where you make the bet. But when you think about what Cleveland gave up, like, hey, that 2031 pick, when we're talking about, getting towards the end of the Donovan Mitchell extension, and we'll see how long the front court stays together. We'll see James Harden re-sign 3 years, where Harden's going to be at that point. It's like, hey, there is another side to this to where Peyton Watson is fine, not breakout. And we get to this stretch and it's like, oh, Cleveland is in the middle of a pivot and they have traded it unprotected first. So like that risk is there. And I think it's fair to acknowledge that risk is there. With Peyton, though, I'm glad you touched on the shooting. I'm glad you touched on the handoffs in particular, because like going back through his film yesterday and some this morning and being reminded of, okay, the separation wasn't always the cleanest on the drives, but like the stride length got him to spots and the overall aggression was there. And it's like, ooh, I'm curious to see like how he builds on that. His willingness to take threes off the bounce, his willingness to take threes. There were a lot more unders with his handoffs than I remembered. So it's good to get the refresher there. But like him seeing that and be like, no, you can't do that against me anymore. It's like, okay, I think this is a foundation that you could build off of. And defensively, you already mentioned, not the most explosive guy, but a lot of length. Can really bother folks, can make plays off the ball, especially when he's locked into those off-ball assignments. When you mentioned the name DeAndre Hunter as part of your answer, I was like, it hit me in a way. So I'm trying to work through my feelings in real time. Because if there's one DeAndre Hunter comp to make with Peyton Watson, is that you look at the player and you look at dimensions and you think there is a size and activity that allows you to downsize at the 4, and then you watch them on the glass and it's like, ooh, maybe we can't really do that. And that was one of the early concerns I had with DeAndre Hunter. And as I hit on Tuesday, I was like, hey, Cleveland does kind of need to, it sounds funny to say they need to replace Dean Wade, but they do need someone that can like size that or size up or guard up rather, and kind of hold down some of those 4 responsibilities when they do go single center. I don't know how comfortable I am with Peyton Watson being a 4 defensively. That is something that I just want to get more film on. But I don't know how I feel about him getting a steady dose of that. And so like that's just something that... Yeah.
Let's hang there, because it's not like he would be guarding the 4s, in theory.
He would not always be guarding the 4s. But I think to the overall lineup versatility portion, it's like, okay, who can feel and do that dirty work? If you are going... like Jared Allen or Evan Mobley at the 5, Watson at the 3, who would be like the backup 4 in that case? Like if it's not Peyton Watson.
You're asking me?
Yeah, like that's like, yeah, like not playing gotcha or anything like that. Like an earnest, like if it's not going to be Watson.
It'd be him and Jalen Tyson or him and Naquan Tomlin. It's not a new issue for Cleveland. They don't have Dean Wade. So I guess I'm trying to figure out where your concern level is. It's not laying because it's not like he's going to be guarding the 4s to a degree. They'll probably switch to a degree. He'll be guarding a perimeter player. So what's the I think because they didn't have Peyton Watson, so it's like who would it have been before?
No, that part is fair. Like I think to that end, if we're talking about general lineup versatility, like they do still have to answer that portion for me. And if we are getting to like some heavy switch all stuff with Peyton Watson, he can start on the point of attack. If he's then switching on to bigger players, like what are the downstream effects of that? Like that's kind of where I'm like broadening the scope on that front. And so that's what I was like, okay, I want to see what that portion looks like. And then offensively, a lot of the scoring growth, if we're talking about the numbers of it, was the 3-point shot. And this was like the first time that he had a real extended stretch of shooting the basketball like that. And so I am curious to generally see like where he lands as a shooter, as he is now just going to be starting 3 in Cleveland.
I'm stunned. Dunkers, the rare Dunker spot flip-flop. The Cleveland Cavaliers acquire a young wing as a starter, and Nekias Duncan somehow is not enthused or excited. I didn't see this coming, pals. I didn't see this happening, friends. I didn't think I would be on the Peyton Watson train before Nekias. I didn't think so. Not sure what to do with my hands.
Don't do me like that. And so, like, again, there are obvious pathways to where this works. And I do think overall he is going to be good for them. I think what's kind of baked in my head, like there are just general on-court questions that I want to see. But broader sense for me is you have now cashed in your remaining chips on this being the bet. Like with DeAndre Hunter, like that wasn't a here's everything we have to add DeAndre Hunter into the mix. It was more of a, I guess, above dart throw, but like it was a calculated gamble. With Peyton Watson, this is calculated, but it's like we've been navigating the second apron. We have not traded this 31 first. You kind of just need this to be more firm. And so that's where it's less about Watson and more like what the Watson move means, because it now means like this is what you are working with. And if Peyton Watson is just fine instead of great, your next pivot kind of has to be just from a salary perspective. Like, okay, we are splitting up Jared Allen and Evan Mobley now if we don't make a big run. We are taking another look at the guard room if this Peyton Watson thing doesn't work, especially when you're looking at the collective ages. Like Mitchell's going to be 30, James Harden in his mid-30s, Jared Allen, I think, approaching 30. Like Watson, Mobley, and I guess like Jalen Tyson as well. Like those are like the super young people in the room right now. And so like I think the pivot point would be elsewhere. So that's where I'm just like, I see how it can work. It's just recognizing there is a downside to this, to where if it doesn't, you're having to make more drastic changes now if it doesn't hit. Like that's what I'm trying to convey.
I mean, this is just where we differ a little bit, because this is the Cleveland Cavaliers who have been in a quote unquote perilous state seemingly for years, in the sense that, is this going to be the end? Is this the end of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell? Is this the end of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen? What's their next move going to be? And that ends up with them getting James Harden and Peyton Watson. So it's like, okay, I understand that point, but we've kind of been having this conversation for a couple years. Cleveland's been a good team, and they did add James Harden and Peyton Watson. So let's see what it looks like first. I guess for me, like with this current draft structure, I'm out on the yelling about picks, because I don't know what any of it's going to mean. Let's see what happens. That's so far down the line, 2031. Hey, it's far. Trying to get through today. I'm just kidding. But
no, that's real.
I'll lob this question that I did lob to Carter Rodriguez of the Chase Down, the Emmy-winning Carter Rodriguez.
That's right.
What if Peyton Watson is Cleveland's, or grows into Cleveland's, Jaden McDaniels?
That would be such a tremendous bit for them. Would be such a tremendous bit for them if he does. I feel like that's probably the closest like stylistic comp, especially if we're talking about the high end. That's what you want. Like that's why you give him the contract, and that's the bet that you make. Where it's like, even if he isn't, I think he started 40 games last year, but like the 38 game stretch I want to focus on, where he was just the full-time starter, shot over 43% from three. Like even if he is 37 or 38% on like 4.5 attempts, you take that with the closeout attacking. And then defensively, I will defend 1 through 3 if you need me to. And like whether we lean into switching, like we have seen through this Cleveland era with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, they've been a drop team. They've been a switch team. We saw them experiment with activity. That's a lot of lift that you can throw at people. And so again, to the high end, like that could absolutely be the bit. And if it is, the defense has an even higher upside now. Because as good as like Pete DeAndre Hunter could be defensively, it was more so I'm going to mirror you and I'm also strong against like wings. With Peyton Watson, there's a lift, there's an activity, there's an event creation to like, oh, we can also force turnovers on top of this, on top of the lift that we bring to the table. And then offensively, again, like just the shooting equity, if it is any semblance of real, based on what the last year sample was, that becomes a lot of fun. And while the advantage creation opportunity is going to look a little bit different, just because James Harden, future Hall of Famer, Donovan Mitchell, incredibly good, like they create gravity in a different way than Nikola Jokic does. You know, bouncing back to the handoff point with Peyton Watson, like there's still going to be an element of James Harden drawing attention, Donovan Mitchell drawing attention. So like those tilted defenses should still be there for Peyton Watson to attack. So I'm excited to see what that part looks like.
No, I think it's fun. It's a fun trade to talk about. There are different opinions and thoughts you can have. For me, it's just like I didn't think Cleveland would be able to add a young player like this to this core. Mm-hmm. You know, with what we've seen as far as rosters go, usually the deconstruction of that team is not fun. It doesn't usually end up with you adding a young player to your core. You usually have to take a piece of your core to turn it into a young player. And like Max Strus, they had to trade, but it's not like they had to try and trade Evan Mobley to get a Peyton Watson plus pieces. So that's where my entry level is. Now, based on what you've said about Peyton Watson, I'm very intrigued to hear how you, Nekias Duncan, feel about the Denver Nuggets not being able to retain Peyton Watson and trading Peyton Watson and receiving picks.
Hate it. Absolutely. Hate is too strong. Let me not play it up to the crowd. I am not a fan of how this landed for the Denver Nuggets. When you do have young, intriguing wing in your building that has shown some on-ball chemistry with Nikola Jokic, and just in general, if you're trying to build a defense around Nikola Jokic, what you want is length and activity. Scheme-wise, personnel-wise, you want that. You've got Peyton Watson in the building. And so for you to like make this sign and trade and you're still in the second apron, it's not even like this got you out of it to open up optionality. You still have to do something else to open up some optionality for you. Congrats on the tax savings. Your team is worse right now. And you have Nikola Jokic at the peak of his powers. You are coming off of the best year of Jamal Murray's career. And what you have to show for it right now is Marvin Bagley, who we talked about a little bit on the pod. I am intrigued about how he slots in. It's like Roma the Dunker spot, finishing, general activity on the offensive glass and stuff. Like, fine. You bring back Spencer Jones, which was a little bit of a surprise in light of what the Peyton Watson negotiations were and the second apron ramifications that will come if you match the offer sheet. And so now it's just like, okay, is Bagley in the building, Tyus Jones back, Spencer Jones back, and then you have now most recently been continuously linked to DeMar DeRozan, and now per Chris Haynes, it seems like that's heating up even more. Like, are those three plus adding DeMar DeRozan to the room, is that going to be better than what you had last year? It could be. Like, I'm not saying it's a definitive no, but since the DeRozan thing hasn't happened yet, and this is all we have to work on, like, I feel worse about where the Denver Nuggets are right now. And it's rough that this is how it ended for this.
Yeah, it's not an easy pill to swallow. So I know Denver Nuggets fans are not happy. You saw how you developed Peyton Watson. He finally got the opportunity. He was good, and then he's gone. And you didn't get anything back. And so I'm not going to come with my typical Steve, hey, hear me out. I get it. I'm going to ask a question to you, Nekias, though.
Okay.
How much of this is just the framework of the Western Conference? How much of this is, hey, why is Denver not going to look different next year? How much of this is, hey, that window's closing? Because when it was Boston and they gutted that team, everyone was just like, yeah, they got to get under that second apron. They got to get out of there. With Denver, wouldn't that also be the goal? Their sacrifice just hits a little harder?
I think it's a fair question. I think tied to the perception around it, Boston was just so fresh off the title and you just kind of understood this is what it's going to be. And then when you made those moves, it is Jason Tatum under 30, Jaylen Brown under 30. And they have just been like Eastern Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals, et cetera. It's like, it's easy to kind of bake in on this is what it's been. And even more broadly, we have taken swings. Like, the conversation about moving Jrue Holiday and moving Kristaps Porzingis, especially following the Jason Tatum injury, which also just kind of expedited this, Like, we had to make those moves to do this. And so, like, I think the conversation would be more similar if Denver hit this point and they traded Aaron Gordon, who they acquired and gave the contract to. And it's like, all right, health stuff, we got to get under the second apron. Like, he's just the big salary block. It sucks, but this is what we got to do. I think the like direct comp would be if, I guess there really isn't a clean one-to-one comparison. It'd be like if Boston hit that stage and they were like, all right, cool, we're trading like last year's Nekias to try to get it. We're doing a sign trade with Nekias. It's like, well, no, he's like young. He came through your system, but you can pay him. Like, why are you doing that? So I think that's where the difference is kind of coming. Yeah.
I don't have a strong take. It was a thought bubble I had in my head. Like, okay, is it just because it's a young player as opposed to a player that's been paid? Like, would you rather Jamal Murray got moved? I'm not going to utter Christian Brown's name, but like, I'm sure you probably would have liked Christian Brown to be the trade asset. But I mean,
you need 2 to tango, or 5, I guess.
You need more people to get it done. I think this hallmark of this Denver core, right? Because it's not like you can just trade Jamal Murray. Because Jamal Murray and Jokic are very good. They have proof of concept. Aaron Gordon got even better. They've had to hit on the margins. The problem for Denver is when they hit on the margins, that player leaves and gets paid. Mm-hmm. Bruce Brown plays well, sweet, paid. Tim Hardaway Jr. plays well, sweet, paid. Spencer Jones played well. OKC
well, we'll take that.
So, okay, the pieces you hit end up leaving. If you miss on young players and draft picks, it hurts even more. So, what's the pivot and the piece to make this team a lot better? The move was Cam Johnson. And so, okay, are we baking that Cam Johnson is going to take another leap? Are we hoping that Christian Brown's not that? And then we just have to do what we've done during this stretch, which is rely on people to do enough in their role to make this work? I don't know. And like, this is like, you're supposed to be like, I know, the authority with the analysis. I'm thinking out loud here. Where do you pivot if you're Denver? Because we talked about them. They have a good group, a good team. They were a good team last year. Mm-hmm. There's a lingering cloud around them. And I feel like there's a lingering cloud around a lot of the Western Conference teams based on what people saw the Thunder and Spurs do last year. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, why are you not doing this? As opposed to, what can this team be? Mm-hmm. And so I'm really intrigued by how people are going to handle 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the Western Conference, because swings have been made, but it feels like people are like, is that enough? Like, who feels good about Denver, Houston, LA, Minnesota right now? Curiosity.
I'll tell you what.
No, gotcha. I'm curious.
No, I would say the like Minnesota of the 4 is probably where it's like, hey, what does about look like with LaMelo?
Okay.
And even then, like, they lost pretty much all of their 4s in the process. So like, there's still like question mark there. But like Minnesota of the group is probably where it's like, okay, let's see. Especially since like they have bothered OKC at different times, haven't been able to beat them consistently, but like they bothered them with what they can put on the table. They have just flat out beat Denver. You know what I mean? And so, and like the Spurs matchups have been interesting as well. So like, there's also a little bit of equity of, we've seen glimpses of what it looks like when it works or when it has worked, period. And now they have made a star swing that could amplify Anthony Edwards, who is already like a playoff killer. And so like, I think that's where they get that compared to Houston, where it's like, okay, we believe in this defense. Y'all gonna crash the offensive glass. How healthy is KD going to be? How reliable is Alperen Sengun going to be like on a playoff level? What does the Amen Thompson offense look like in a playoff context? Because we've seen like some pretty extreme highs and some pretty extreme lows throughout his very young playoff career. And so like, I think that's where it's like, I see it, but also. And then there are the Lakers who are just like, you got Luka.
Mm-hmm. Let me lob a final Denver question, in theory, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Is this the move to be able to make a move midseason? Because pardon me if I'm incorrect, they didn't have a pick to trade before this trade. Mm-hmm. So is this okay, this isn't quite working, or we can get someone midseason, this is pick plus X. Now we pounce. Could that be the setup? It sounds like copium, but I'm just curious.
No, like in a literal sense, it kind of has to be. And I think circling back to a little bit earlier, like where you want the pivot point, like I think in an ideal world, Denver is able to move Christian Brown for something or a little on the salary side to like open up more optionality for him. But again, it takes two teams or more to pull that off. And if you don't have picks to grease the wheels, it makes it more difficult to do that. Number 2 on the list would probably be Zeke Naji. As you know, Steve, I have been a fan of, at least early on. Like, hey, look at the switchability. He can shoot a little bit. He just has not been good enough, just flat out. And you give him the extension, and now that seems incredibly difficult to move, because if it wasn't, it probably would have been moved by now, just based on how Denver has handled like the young rotation pieces. And so when you have that, and Cam Johnson really came on in the second half of the season in particular, so you don't really want to move him, when part of getting Cam Johnson was like, if we're trading Michael Porter Jr., another young big salary slot, we do need to replicate the shooting to some degree, would also add a little bit more on-ball juice, et cetera. So it just becomes tougher to make those moves. So like it kind of has to be, we have a future first to dangle with. Like I hope it doesn't end up being, here's the 2031 first in Zeke Naji to just open up. So like that would not make me feel good at all. I'm not a Nuggets fan, but like that would make me feel bad if that's what this turns into. We sign and trade Peyton Watson, and now it is that future first as a salary dump. Like it needs to be that first plus Cam Johnson, that first plus Aaron Gordon to get another star in the room. Like it needs to be a swing, a legit swing, in my opinion, if that's going to be the bit, because they don't have many other pathways elsewhere.
Understood. Now I'll give you a choose your own adventure here. Would you like to talk about the Washington Wizards' involvement in this trade, or would you like to go to the whole reason this thing happened anyways?
Let's go with the latter.
Because look, we're not having this conversation if James Harden doesn't get that contract. James Harden re-signed 3 years, 97. Yeah, I could have got 42. It's cool though. Don't worry about it. I'll get it on the back end. 20s, 50s, 100s cash.
No way.
Spend that. Let's go, big. A big game, James, is back. Spend that.
And that is funny for like 8 different reasons, but I will leave that there. I feel like I saw a tweet where he's going to become the 4th player in NBA history to reach $500 million in career earnings by the end of this deal, which is incredibly impressive. Salute to him. On a more serious note, James was really good for Cleveland last year. And especially the early portion of the playoffs, he was so incredibly important to setting the tone and also closing doors for Cleveland as Donovan Mitchell was just trying to find it. And so for you to get James Harden at like 33, 34 a year, I get the age concerns. And like you always have to have just general health questions because of the age and the wear and tear. But he has largely been very durable. Like, yeah, James Harden is worth $30 million a year. Like he was all-star caliber last year. He at least deserved to be in the conversation for like an all-NBA third team. Ultimately didn't make it. But like, I think it's fair to say he was a top 20 player, which just kind of puts you in that conversation by default. I think it's fine. I think through the broader context of Cleveland, it's like, okay, you have now committed to James Harden. Earlier this offseason, you committed to Donovan Mitchell, who incredibly good, all NBA good. There are some playoff questions with the play style, decision-making, playmaking, but whatever. A lot of money committed to the guards. You now make the sign and trade for Peyton Watson. You get a young dart throw. You have now traded the 2031 first in an effort to do this, which I'll quickly say, I like Max Strus in Los Angeles. I know you are already being treated with his Clippers group, but I do like the Max Strus fit on that front.
They got some players. I'm just saying, the Clippers got a lot of dudes. They got some hoopers in there. I still don't know what it means win-wise, but they're not going to be fun to play against. Like the Clippers are going to be annoying, and this is like a Ty Lue team.
Yeah, helps open up the playbook. No, that's fair. I meant to mention this during like the Peyton Watson centric portion of this, because like there is like a very real possibility he just ends up being better than Max Strus, or at the very least more available than Max Strus. But like you talked about Cleveland having the movement baked in. Max Strus was a big part of the movement, especially when he was healthy. And like Peyton Watson isn't a movement shooter. You know what I mean? So like just elements of the playbook, I'm curious to see like how much of that is replicated. If that's just going to be Sam Merrill, you get all of it. How much of that how much growth we will see from Peyton Watson on that front. Max Strus is going to help open up the playbook even more in Los Angeles. That will guard anybody he asks him to, will crash the offensive glass too. Like that just feels like a Ty Lue Clipper guy. So like I just want to get a quick salute there. But yeah, man, Cleveland is locking into. We have this core four. We now got a young wing to ideally complete this. We're going to bake on more internal improvement. We talked about Jalen Tyson on Tuesday, so I'm not going to hang there too long for this episode. But like, we want Jalen Tyson to get better. We want Sam Merrill to continue to grow for us because like he made some pretty big strides defensively last year, quiet as kept, in addition to the shooting and the playmaking. Craig Porter Jr., hello. More minutes for you as the backup point. We'll see. I'm going to continue to be a fan of Craig Porter Jr. until I just cannot do it in good conscience. But yeah, like this is where like we're banking on this core four plus Peyton plus internal development with the reserve group. It could work. They should be a very good team. There is just downside that should be acknowledged. I guess is where I ultimately land with Cleveland. Okay, we are going to take a break, and when we return, we shift to the W side. Awesome Wings Fever matchup with some things to take away. We salute Neko Gumake, and we have an awesome guest coming your way. Please stay tuned.